welcome to Tech Open Air, the 16 studio. My name is Anne Pasquale, I work at IDEO, and I'm going to talk with Luke Woods and Paola Antonelli about the role of design. Welcome, you two.
Thank you.
Do you mind quickly introducing yourself about what you do?
Sure. Paola Antonelli, Italian, as you can tell, living in New York City. I work at the Museum of Modern Art, where I am a senior curator of architecture and design, specialty contemporary design, and director of R&D.
My name is Luke Woods, and I'm the head of design at Facebook. Really excited to be here at TOA with you too.
Great. So you both work in the field of design. May I ask what got you into it? How did you decide to choose that direction?
Well, it's a little bit of an idiosyncratic story. I found out about the field of design because a babysitter of mine when I was a child, her sons were studying industrial design at the University of Cincinnati, and they were drawing shoes, and they were drawing automobiles, and I loved the drawings that they were making. And that kind of made me aware of the field and helped me to discover it and to get into it. And I think that's not a very uncommon story, where folks end up bumping into the field of design. Rather than when you talk to kids, they say, I want to be an astronaut or an engineer or a doctor. I think it's all too rare that you hear a kid say,
Design
I want to be a designer.
How about you?
It has changed tremendously, but there's one thing that I want to say which is important. Aesthetics still matters. I find that beauty is a form of communication, and when I say beauty, I don't mean prettiness. It can be punk, so it's aesthetic intention. It still matters, and it's a form of respect towards other human beings. So design, thankfully, has changed. It has embraced different dimensions that it didn't embrace before. It's gone way past not only furniture and cars, but also past posters. It's become interaction. It's become social design, design for the good of the masses, for common good, for social improvement. But I do believe that in this time of gigantic change, we have to remind people that aesthetics is still one of the criteria, right?
I would agree. I think that that the past years have been years marked by huge changes in the world of design, as more and more of the things that we design become more and more digital. And digital things are things that we can build quickly, much more quickly than we could build industrial physical products. Sure. There are also things that are never really finished. You can always keep modifying and refining a digital product.
And there are many things that designers don't finish because they rely on people to finish them, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, you of all people know it. It's so beautiful how the role of designers have changed, and sometimes that become the designers of matrices that then people can customize.
Yeah, I love the point that Paola's making. I think that even amidst all of these changes, one of the real constants is design's focus on people and on different problems that humans encounter and on what we can do to improve the human condition.
How would you define design? What is design?
Definitions are really impossible. It's a little bit like defining art, when you say that everything is designed, that's really what it means. I mean, you can say that it's the balance of goals and means. So you set a goal and then you choose the means at your disposal, whether it's code or stainless steel. But, ultimately, the only difference between an artist and a designer is that an artist can choose whether to be responsible towards other human beings or not. And instead, a designer has to be by definition. It's almost as if they were taking a Hippocratic oath, which sometimes they betray, because there are designers that do evil. But still, they have to deal with other people, don't you think?
Yeah, I mean, I also think about design in very broad terms. And I think it is a hard area to try to define. I prefer to try to practice more so than define it. But it seems like one of the fundamental things is a focus on making something versus simply explaining something. or understanding something. We might try to do those things along the way, but ultimately it's about making something that we hope will make conditions better for people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you talk about the impact of design, which is super interesting. Sometimes we tend to think about it as creative problem solving, to actually drive the changes that are going on in a positive directions. What do you think are the traits that designers bring to actually lead positive change in the world? What do you think makes designers special?
Well, one thing is that I think designers are pretty comfortable with ambiguity. They're used to taking in lots of different inputs and signals, and trying to combine those into some sort of plan. And so I think designers are very comfortable at the fuzzy beginnings of new initiatives when not very much is figured out yet.
They're also comfortable with ignorance, right? So it's the same thing. Designers tend to be, well, this is a generalization. There are some designers that are very arrogant, but in most cases, designers are not arrogant. They kind of welcome their own limitations so they can bring more people in the team. And they really love to work in this kind of open-ended, interdisciplinary way. And that's their strength, I think.
So we're here at a tech conference, maybe, that brings together art and culture and other influences in society. What do you think, how would you describe the moment we're in right now? Let me expand a little bit on that question. One thing that I've observed is that some tech companies have grown to a certain scale and are asking themselves, what's beyond that? What's beyond tech when it becomes a commodity and almost everybody can access very similar types of tools to create new things? What does that mean for our role as designers? What's beyond tech?
Well, I think that what designers can really do for the tech field is to provide perspective. I noticed that so many tech companies lose themselves into their own belly button. You know, it happens sometimes. It becomes a very insulated world. And what designers do is they provide a viewpoint that is outside. I like to say that maybe in the future, design will become divided between, like physics, between theoretical and applied design. So I'm hoping that sometimes theoretical designers will be brought in to remind people of who they're working for. Ultimately, we, the people, are the bosses of design and of technology.
How do you think about that? What's beyond tech working as a designer at Facebook?
You know, I think that there are lots of interesting things happening in the technology world today, many of which you can see here, advances in VR, in AR, in artificial intelligence, and so forth. But what really excites me as a designer, and I find this to be a common property in many of the folks that I work most closely with, is a focus much more on people and on what we can do to bring people together than on the technology itself.
See, a company like Facebook cannot be insular, you know, so there are some companies that have such scale that it encompasses and hugs the world. So, but there are others that really become too deep and the horizontal part of the T becomes too narrow.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You touched upon having a perspective and responsibility for what we create. How do you feel about that, the responsibility towards the things you decide on as a designer? I think about data and privacy, like what have been the boundaries you had to push to be comfortable around what you design?
Yeah, at Facebook, we design products for a very large community of people around the world, and there's a great responsibility that comes with that. Tomorrow, actually, I'm going to talk about a few different examples of work that we do in that space. I think one that's interesting mentioning now is that we're doing some work in the suicide prevention space today, in partnership with a number of different experts in the field. And you know, you might think of Facebook as a place to see family photos or the latest videos or to find the news. But sometimes people also post things that could really worry you as a friend. And so if you see a post like that, you can flag that post to Facebook, and we can provide you with some tips from suicide prevention experts in the field for things that you might do. Like, for example, if you're worried about somebody, it's not very good to say like, "Hey, I'm concerned about you." It's actually much better to say something like, "Hey, I really care about you." So if somebody flags this kind of warning, we can also then pause the individual's Facebook experience and provide them with different tips and try to get them connected with suicide prevention experts around the world. We actually have 30 different partners globally who we try to connect you with. So this is like an oft, unseen part of the Facebook experience, but I think highlights the responsibility that we have to the community of people that we serve.
And still there's this saying about just because you can doesn't mean you should. What do you think, Paola? Are things, big design opportunities or problems that design can tackle?
Well, there are so many, I wouldn't even know where to begin. But I think that the best way to think about it is by thinking of how you can change people's behaviors, also in minute details. So, for instance, I think that peer pressure really works. If you think of how many smokers have quit just because the world around has become less tolerant about smoke. I mean, I'm one of them. Or I see children learning more about recycling and then kind of pressuring their parents into doing the right thing. So I love acupuncture design that by changing small behaviors changes everything. Then, of course, there are designers that change big things all at once, but I'm always looking for those moments of design that change everything.
Super interesting. Behavior change as a trait or strength of design. Maybe one last question. Creativity has been recognized as one of the most important leadership skills to be actually taught in schools. You guys are leaders in this field. What do you think about how to nurture creative leadership?
It's a big question. There are so many recipes that are distributed through business journals and business schools. I think it starts in the cradle, and I think that there should be much more attention given to kids and design and kids and creativity. So one of the biggest problems that I encounter in the United States is the price of school, the price of education, because I think it goes against creativity, because when you pay $60,000 a year, you want to have a job immediately because you have to pay the debt. So you're not willing to take risks. You're scared to death. You want to just get a salary. So it's a very systemic issue that needs to be tackled to address creativity, I think. What is this?
Background noise.
Look,
I would like to go beyond education and ask you, how do you feel as a designer when you enter a management boardroom? Do you feel like you can speak up as much as any other business person in the room?
Yeah, I think that the design perspective and a creative perspective, a human perspective, is an important voice at that table. I think as designers, though, it's also important for us to recognize that that's one facet or one component of leadership. There are also other important components of leadership.
So it's teamwork, once again.
It's teamwork, and I think there's a really exciting thing happening today with more and more designers or people with design backgrounds founding or leading companies. But I do believe that their role changes to some extent when they take on a position like that. I think the perspective they have,
I know them.
the perspective they have is still a design perspective, and those are values that they bring to the table. But design is not the whole job if you're the CEO or the founder of a given company.
Cool. Thank you so much. Looking forward to our panel. So thanks for joining at Tour 16.